Hello. Tonight's conversation is about generational healing, inherited survival patterns, trauma, identity, and what it truly means to break cycles. For many people, especially within the Black and Brown communities, survival has become the norm. But now, more people are beginning to ask deeper questions. What patterns did I inherit? What am I carrying emotionally that didn't begin with me? And how do we heal while still honoring our families, culture, and community? Joining me today is Dr. Jasmine Escalera, founder of the Institute of Generational Healing, an organization creating spaces for healing, education, deeper conversations around trauma, cultural healing. Welcome to The Balance. And how are you? Thank you.
I'm doing fabulous. It's actually really nice to be here because I have never been to South Miami before. I've lived here for 3.5 years. And so we passed Coconut Grove, which is, I think, the furthest I've gone. And then I was just like, where am I going? So it's awesome to be here. New place.
Thank you. Yes. Miami is it's a big city.
Yeah.
And Dade County is even bigger. So
yeah, well, I live on South Beach, and I have to tell you that it feels more like a little community and neighborhood there.
Yeah.
So it feels like everybody knows everybody. But yeah, I agree.
I live up the street from you in North Bay Village.
No way. That's awesome.
I love it. I've been there 17 years.
We've been there. Me and my dog Cody have been in South Beach for, oh my Lord, 2.5 years. Yeah.
Wow.
It's been great.
Where did you move from?
Brooklyn, New York, born and raised.
Oh, you're part of the New York wave.
I am. I have to tell you that I never would have thought that I would have moved to Miami, and it has been the greatest blessing of my life. I am a firm believer in the fact that you cannot heal where the trauma sort of began. Mm-hmm. And Miami has been the place that has been the most healing for me. It allowed for me to really ground myself, center myself, and focus on me in a way that was very different than I was doing in New York.
You're not the first person I heard say that. I think I think the beauty of Miami is you can make it into whatever you want. Mm-hmm. If you want, you're here for healing and rest, you can do that. If you're looking for some partying,
you can definitely do that.
You can do that, but you don't have to. And
absolutely,
the party doesn't necessarily come to you. But
yeah,
let's dive deeper into the healing portion.
Yeah,
you founded the Institute of Generational Healing. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about that.
The Institute for Generational Healing is an organization that we just launched this year. Mm-hmm. I'm very excited about it. And we aim to be one of the global leaders in recognizing the science and also the practices of generational healing. It is my firm belief through my healing and the healing that I have seen others do that generational healing is one of the modalities that we all should tap into. But we especially want to focus on communities of color, Black and Brown communities, which are often under-resourced when it comes to healing and healing practices.
So let's back up a little bit. Mm-hmm. You talked about the science. Can you talk to us about your educational background?
Yeah, sure. So I actually have my bachelor's degree in biochemistry and my PhD in neuropharmacology. And I grew up in the projects of Brooklyn, New York. So for me, my parents in the 80s and 90s, it was very much like, you're not going to continue the cycle of living in the projects. You're not going to get pregnant early. You're going to go out there. You're going to get a college degree. You're going to get a great job, and you're going to really be able to progress in your life. And the community was backing that. My parents were backing that. My family backed that. And so I really found a love of science. And in fact, I found a love of brain science. My dad had a traumatic brain injury when I was very young, so he had to learn to walk and talk, read and write all over again. So it fascinated me that there was a part of your body that had to heal, and it had to heal in a way for you to really be able to almost start again. Mm-hmm. And so I became so interested in neurology, neuroscience, and I chose neuropharmacology because I said that I'm going to go into the pharmaceutical industry, I'm going to make bank, and I'm going to retire my parents. And it didn't end up working out that way because as I was going through my education, I really found more of a love of giving back and trying to figure out how I can use science, neuroscience, brain science in a way to give back to communities that really needed it. So my background is I worked in children's mental health. I focused on kids that had a range of different mental health disorders, traumatic brain injuries, and supporting them in really diagnostics and technology that can help them to lead a life that was thriving.
So talk to me about your healing journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my healing journey is very complex, but I would say that my healing journey started with love. I am a hopeless romantic, completely a hopeless romantic. And the number one thing I always say is, I want to find my soulmate and my partner. And I thought that I did. I got married and just 10 years ago got divorced. And after that divorce, I jumped into another relationship. And when that relationship didn't work out and I was brokenhearted, I had to take a step back and ask myself, okay, so I seem to be in relationships with the same kind of person. I seem to have the same kind of relationship dynamics. So I want to try to look at myself here. What is it that I need to do or change or heal in order to really have the one thing that I want the most, love? And so that question took me on a very deep journey and a deep dive of, what do I believe about love? What do I believe about relationships? What do I believe about partnerships? Which led me to really understanding that my idea of love and partnership and how a woman should, quote unquote, be in a relationship really came from a lot of inherited trauma. Coming from a Latino family, and especially growing up with the women that I grew up with, we were taught to endure in relationships, not to thrive in relationships. And so much of what I was doing in relationships was either molding myself, changing myself to be what that individual wanted me to be in order to make the relationship work, or would become incredibly guarded and not even allow anyone to get to know who I was. And those were the dynamics that I saw represented in the women in my family who were trying to make relationships work that simply shouldn't have worked. They were survival patterns. They were the ways that they had to live within their relationships because of their particular situations. But what I was realizing was that I was mimicking and mirroring many of those same behaviors, and it wasn't leading to the outcome that I really wanted. So my healing journey was all about, how do I find love that is healthy and doesn't continue the cycle that I lived in terms of relationships. And that's really where it all started. I just want love.
That was a lot. I love that. Trying to unpack that. Because one of the things I that I picked up on, it's women losing themselves in this relationship.
Yeah.
So if you're having to conform to somebody else, you're not really being who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah,
and you recognize that.
110%. And so as part of the Institute for Generational Healing, one of the things that we really want to bring to the forefront is the science and the research behind inherited patterns and survival patterns and generational healing. And in an effort to do that, and because of my own story of really wanting to have healthy relationships in all areas of my life, not just love, but also friendships, and even with my family, I created the Relationship Pattern Quiz, which is a quiz that women, and especially women of color, can take that will essentially pinpoint which of 4 inherited survival patterns you're living out in relationships that are holding you back. And one of those patterns is self-abandonment. I saw it consistently within the women in my family, putting men first, even men who were abusing them, simply to make a relationship work under particular circumstances where they had to. Many of the women in my family did not have the financial means or the education to leave relationships, so they didn't have the capacity to do that. But what I also saw and realized was that even though I had the education, I had the financial means, and I had the backing, I was still repeating the exact same behaviors. So this isn't about education. This isn't about resources. This is really about inheriting certain ways of being and not being able to break those cycles, either because you don't know that those inherited patterns exist and you're just behaving, or simply because you don't have the tools, the resources, or the language to actually make that pattern break happen.
How did you recognize this?
It really was a lot of self-exploration. When you ask yourself the question, how come I can't find the love that I desire? And you don't look at it from the space of beating yourself up. And I think it helped because I was a researcher. You look at it from the space of, I just want to understand what's going on that's stopping me from having something that I really want to achieve or have or experience in this life. And you look at it as an external observer.
Mm-hmm.
You say to yourself, I'm just going to kind of look at this from the external with compassion and deep love to myself, but an understanding of if I want this outcome, I can't continue this way. And so that was a lot of it for me. It was really looking at how am I engaging and acting in relationships that's not conducive to the outcome that I want.
It's inspiring. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So tell me more about your work with the Institute.
Yeah, so the Institute for Generational Healing is really focusing on 3 core pillars.
Mm-hmm.
We want to focus on the research and the science. There's a lot of amazing science that's coming out that's showing that trauma, that survival patterns truly are passed down. And they're passed down typically in 3 ways. They're passed down biologically. So we've heard of the term epigenetics.
Yes.
Where, someone in your family could have experienced trauma, for example, and that will alter gene expression and that gets passed down to you. So it isn't that the trauma gets passed down, but it's that their response to the trauma gets passed down. But these generational wounds, these inherited survival patterns also get passed down, not just biologically, but they get passed down through conditioning. So oftentimes we might see our parents react or engage in a certain way with certain people or with each other or in certain communities, for example. And we then model that same behavior. And that's how these patterns can be passed. But they can also be passed through words, through the words that we use. So we have often been told, especially as women, you don't need a man. You can be the strong one. You can be independent on your own. Well, that programs you to believe and think in a certain way and then act accordingly. So we want to focus on the science and the research behind these inherited patterns so that we can give language and validity to the science to show that generational healing isn't just foo-foo and woo-woo. It's real. And the second thing we want to focus on is the education. It's hard for me to go out into the community, especially Black and Brown communities, and speak about generational healing and have my own people not know what this means. And the reason why I really want to focus on the Black and Brown community is because of the historical trauma, the cultural trauma, the migration trauma that have happened within our communities that we are still holding on to today, that we don't need to hold on to in the same way that our ancestors did or the generations before us did. So it's very important to create culturally grounded and very accessible education for communities to understand what generational healing is. Again, we truly believe that this is for everyone, but my primary focus with this organization is to put our communities at the forefront of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third thing we really want to focus on is, okay, great, we want to heal, but how? And so it's important to really understand what are the different modalities, what are the different ways to heal generational trauma or inherited survival patterns that don't just include talk therapy. And the reason I primarily want to focus on the other modalities is because I'm a firm believer in talk therapy, CBT. These things are so powerful, and I understand their strength being from the mental health space. But what I truly believe is that when we talk about the Black and Brown community, we need to go back to our roots in terms of healing. There are many ancestral modalities to healing that exist that connect to our soul, not just to our pain. And so it's important to call forward some of those healing modalities so that we can feel like we're healing in a way that our ancestors healed.
Can you give us an example of that?
Sure, yeah. Dancing. So when we think about people healing in our communities, dance is one of the most amazing ways to heal. Drum circles are amazing to heal. We also think about, I think that one of the primary reasons why Miami has been so healing for me is I'm constantly grounding, meaning I'm constantly putting my feet in the sand, in the same water that is near the Caribbean where my family is from. So our ancestors did more things with the earth, with the ground, with music to actually heal. And the reason why those things are so prominent in our communities is because generational trauma and inherited survival patterns, they don't just exist in the mind. It isn't just about what you think. It's about what your body feels. And so much of that actually allows your body to move this pain through it. And so it's very important that when we come to our communities, which oftentimes can be very adverse to therapy, that we say we can meet you where you are in terms of healing. And so that's really important for us at the Institute, is really to focus on the science and the research, create education that's accessible, and then showcase these different healing modalities, bringing back our healing to our people.
Getting back to your culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot to unpack. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it because these are things, we're taught medicine, things like that. And when we get back to it, it's getting back to your roots, getting back to traditional healing, basic things like going outside, like you said, dancing, putting your feet in the sand, being connected more to the earth, gardening.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And one of the things that I think is really, really important and very valuable is the communities that need this healing the most are often the communities that are most under-resourced, and they're communities that are the most stressed. They're the communities that are in the most survival mode. And so it's important to, again, meet everyone where they are. And so it's essential when we talk about healing and healing modalities to be able to say it can be as simple as this. And that can fit within the schedule of everything that you're managing and doing. It can be 5 minutes a day to start. So that's something that's really important for us as well. And also finding healers that look like us. That has been one of my biggest challenges in this experience is, where do I find the healers that are doing this kind of work that can go into these communities and say, I know you, I see you because I lived just like you.
So important.
Yeah.
Because it gives it more validity.
Absolutely, 110%. It's so essential that when you are going through your healing journey, that you're capable and able of releasing and letting go. And I think we can do that more often when people who look like us are holding that space for us to do that.
Remarkable stuff, Doctor.
Yeah,
thank you. I'm taking it all in. But tell me, how does it go, like certain patterns as far as behavioral?
Yeah. So essentially what we want to think of is, as I mentioned, you can inherit not necessarily the trauma, but you can inherit essentially the stress response in the experience. You can be conditioned, so you can actually model behavior, and you can also take on mindsets. So when we think about that, when we think about the behavior, I think a really great example of this is the relationship pattern quiz, which I mentioned. So I created this quiz. I really wanted for women, especially women of color, to understand what is the inherited survival pattern that's holding you back from relationships, not just in love, in every kind of relationship that you want to have. Now, one of the patterns that really is the most prominent, and it probably won't surprise you, is hyperindependence. It's being the strong one. It's never asking for help, guidance, or support. When we think about this, we think a lot about traditionally what we hear about with Black women, especially. Black women always have to hold it down and be the strong one. What's the cost of that? Sheer exhaustion, not being able to be vulnerable and allowing someone to hold and support you. You may not even think that someone has the capacity to, because that's not something you've ever experienced in your life, is somebody really being there for you. We also see this with the eldest daughter syndrome. The eldest daughter is very often, and that happens to be me, the one who has to hold it down for the family and adult way too early. Now, the behaviors that are associated with being the hyper-independent or the strong one are, I'm always stepping into support, but I'm never allowing someone to support me. I don't trust that other people can hold it down in the same way that I can hold it down. So I'm always the one keeping the situation running. I'm always the one in control.
But that can make you break.
It absolutely can. So when we think about these inherited survival patterns, what I always like to say is the duality effect. So the reason why I love generational healing is because the way that we define it at the Institute is it is an honoring of what you have received that has brought you to where you are today, and a release of what no longer serves you so that you can have the life, the legacy that you truly want. And what I mean by that is if we take that strong woman persona, that has gotten us to where we are, right? We're sitting here talking on this beautiful podcast. We have created so much in our lives because we're strong, we're resilient, and we can get it done. But simultaneous to that, that strong woman persona has probably not allowed us to experience connection in the way we want to. It hasn't allowed us to let our shoulders drop and just simply breathe. And so those are the things that we want to focus on when we think about behaviors. What are the things that have actually provided you the opportunity to be who you are? But what are the behaviors that are actually holding you back from having the life you truly want to have? And so honor the experiences that you were given that have taken you this far, but then ask yourself, how do I let go of the components of this that don't serve me so that I can be a strong woman, but a woman who also knows how to be held?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because so many of us, excuse me. Excuse me. So many of us, that's just one of the, to peel back those layers on it, you have to release it. Yeah. Saying, you know what, I don't have to be this person today.
Right.
I don't need to be the strong woman. I walk around, people see me in my building. I refuse to buy a cart. All this stuff. And they're like, let me help you. I'm like, no, I got it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in my mind, why don't you just let somebody help you? It's okay.
Absolutely.
You don't have to do all this.
Yeah. And it's wild to say this, but that's healing your ancestry, right? That one thing that you just said right now, because it's saying, I don't have to continue to live in this way. So, growing up, the women in my family were pillars of strength. I mean, when I think about my mom, when I think about my grandmother, when I think about my great-grandmother, I had the opportunity to live with those 3 generations of women until my great-grandmother passed when I was, I believe, 11 or 12 years old was when she passed. Mm-hmm. So I lived with 3 generations of amazingly strong, powerful women. And so I got conditioned to believe that that is exactly how I had to be. I had to be that all the time. And the issue with that is discerning, when do I need to be that woman who needs to be that pillar of strength? Because I do need to step out and create, right? I need to create the nonprofit. I need to do it. But when do I choose to just let that go and really let someone support me? And just knowing and having that level of discernment of I get to choose when I'm going to be this way, because it does give me that strength and resilience that I need. And when I get to really just let go. And for so many of us, that discernment doesn't exist.
But I think sometimes it could be with the partners we choose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't fully trust your partner, to make the decisions.
Yeah. And then my question is, from a space of love and compassion to the individual, why'd you choose that partner? I think that's really important for us to really acknowledge, because I chose many partners in the past who were not the partners who I trusted enough to be there for me. And I think there was a responsibility and an ownership that I have to take on that, right? Mm-hmm. I have to take that I didn't choose. I chose the familiar. I chose the individuals who allowed for me to stay in the comfort zone of the survival pattern, not the individuals who were going to help me progress out of it. And I also wasn't in the place where I recognized that. So one of the things that I think is really important, especially for partnership, is to really think about what's the kind of partner that I need to be with for the healing journey that I have gone through and I'm also going through, so that I could feel that level of safety and support, so that I could really make this transformation something that I can own.
Amazing. Talk to me quickly about the nervous system.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've talked extensively on the show about the nervous system, and I noticed within your work that does come up.
Yeah. So the reason why we really ground in nervous system or somatic work is because when we think about generational trauma, when we think about inherited survival patterns, it really is something that's locked in the body. So when I was going on my own healing journey, because I am very focused on my mind and I'm a scientist at heart and a researcher at heart, and also because at the time, spirituality and science didn't coexist as it is starting to coexist now. So for me, it was a mental game. I would tell myself, well, in order to break, these mindsets that I have, I just have to think differently. And although that's a component of the work of healing for sure, is to think differently, to change those neural pathways by thinking differently and being consistent with it. What ends up happening when someone before you has a traumatic response is it changes or alters their genetic code that gets transferred down to you in terms of the actual nervous system stress response. So what gets locked in you is a stress response that is heightened and can be almost triggered for situations that don't necessarily cause that level of a heightened stress response.
Correct.
And so when we think about healing and when we think about nervous system work or somatic work, it's really about learning how to be in stressful situations and manage that situation in a more clean, organic, healed, healthy way so that you're not triggering those stress responses to amplify. You're actually capable of managing those stress responses. And so much of that has to do with the nervous system, which is why breath work, sound healing, Reiki, energy work are so powerful when it comes to healing in general, but also when it comes to generational healing, because it's training you how to use your responses in the most healthy way so that we're not triggering those survival responses or that stress response. We're able to deal with situations in a much more clean way and then think about situations in a better way.
I love that you're saying that because we've explored all that in the show and it's kind of coming full circle right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Talk to me about this. You're on your healing journey, but how do you stay on the healing journey and still connect with, let's say, your family members who...
Oh, I'm going to have to be honest with you. And this is something that I like to talk about, although it makes me very emotional to talk about. I mentioned when we started that, one of the reasons why I moved down to Miami was really to take my healing to another level. And it was because, all of the trauma, everything that I experienced was connected to New York and especially connected to where I was living, but it was also very connected to my family. And so what happens with cycle breakers, what happens with individuals who finally decide, you know what, this chaos in the family, this sweeping things under the rug, this type of living is simply not going to work for me moving forward, and I'm going to cut the tie, is that you often seclude yourself tremendously from your family. Either you choose to, because for a period of time, it's just too triggering, and that's what happened with me. I was going through a healing and then surrounding myself with the exact same people who caused that trauma. And so for me, for a very long time, I didn't have the best relationship with my parents. And it was because I was extremely mad at them and angry at them for what they put me through. And it took me time to generate compassion for them and to see them simply as human beings that I put a title on of parent. And then I created or generated certain expectations of what that was supposed to be that they simply could not hold up to. And I had to release that. But so when we are cycle breakers, this can happen where you start to feel triggered by the people around you because they're the people who have essentially maybe caused the pain that you're trying to clear. So there could be this sense of loneliness, this sense of isolation from your family that you're choosing, or even potentially you could be so misunderstood or labeled as the black sheep that you essentially are almost kind of getting pushed away from your family. And the reason for that is because, hey, you're the one who's saying, I'm choosing to look at this now. I'm choosing to speak about this now. I'm choosing to not hide this part of myself, but to bring it to the surface so that I can heal it. And so many people around you, especially in your family, are not going to think that that's okay to do because it is within their response to just bury it. And we've been doing that for far too long. So I tend to believe, and I've seen this before, that cycle breakers, especially when it comes to their families, can often feel a sense of loneliness as they're going through their deepest forms of healing and isolation from the people they simply love the most and would want to have on that journey with them. But you can't take everyone on the journey with you. You only have to focus on yourself.
This has been, everything you've talked about has just been great. Eye-opening. You've given us so much to think about and wanting, leaving us wanting for more. Just to transition a little bit, you've kind of touched on it. How do you find your balance with everything you do?
Oh, that's such a good question. I will tell you something. The version of me today is the version who can create this organization. The version of me a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago would never have been able to create it. And I want to say that I'm blessed that, I have been looked out by the universe, by God, whoever it is who's watching out for me. They didn't plant this idea until I was ready to actually take the idea and run with it. And when I say that, I mean, create an organization that is going to be just an amazing organization to witness, grow, and develop, but to do it in a way where I have claimed, and I will stay by this, I will not do it at the disservice to myself. And so I am the kind of woman now who knows what she wants, who knows what she's looking for, who's ready to create this, but to also have the life she deserves to have. And so each and every day when I'm creating the Institute, the questions that I'm asking myself are, who's the woman that I want to be at the end of this? And how does she want to move through this process? And what does she really want to have for herself outside of this organization? I do not want to create an organization that's meant to help people break their inherited survival patterns and live in mine. And that's the most important thing for me. So me, my health, my well-being are number one. Now, sometimes I feel like it's not always number one, but I try each and every day to listen to myself. And if I feel like I'm pushing myself too far, or some of those survival patterns are coming back up, like abandoning myself and my desires, or saying, oh, I can push through. No way I can push through. I really try now to be much quicker at catching that and telling myself, this isn't the way you want to build something that's supposed to not just have longevity, but really have the impact you want it to have.
Well, thank you so much, Dr.
Absolutely.
Can you let us know how we can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. So if you're interested in learning more about the Institute for Generational Healing, we just launched as of May 1st. You can follow us on Instagram. You can follow me at Dr. Jasmine Escalera, or you can also follow at Heal Your Lineage. There you will find a link on each of those profiles where you can learn more about the organization. You can take the relationship pattern quiz if you're interested in finding the inherited survival pattern that might be holding you back in relationships. Over 1,000 women have taken the quiz, which is so exciting. That's just great data. You can also donate to the organization if you feel called to support the mission. And you can follow us on YouTube as well. We are creating amazing content on generational healing and how to really go about this process.
Well, thank you. You'll have to come back next
season. Absolutely. And tell you our progress.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone who's made it possible. Our community partners here at the Miami Community Newspaper, the Miller brothers, Emily Gonzalez, my producer. I encourage you all to go back, catch up on the balance. It's been a great season, and I want to thank everybody.